This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go. Welcome to the Clark Connection Podcast. It's great to have you on here with me. I'm your host, Aaron Clark, aka The Coach. And on today's show, we will have special guest Lexington Maximus, founder and CEO of The Art of Admissions. And look, we're going to cover the topic of mentorship and how important it is for you as a leader. But before we get into that, I want to give a very quick shout out to my sponsors. First up, we've got Bobbie with the Comfy Quest LLC, Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services, and Wayne with 7K Metal. And look, all of their contact information, it is listed below in the description. And look, if you want to connect with me, feel free to do so. You can reach me on all social media at coach_A_Clark or via my website, and I'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And again, it's all listed below. But let's get on to Lexington. And Lexington Maximus, I mean, he's such a great guy. Look, the Grammy Award-winning pianist and composer, he's the owner and CEO of The Art of Admissions, which started in 2006, so close to 20 years working for himself. He's an expert sales trainer, mentor, and coach. Internationally known for his keynote speaking and sales training ability, motorcycle enthusiast. And more importantly than that, a friend and a mentor to myself. So let's get connected with Lexington. Welcome to the show, Lexington.
Great to be here, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. That was great to get you on. And I mean, we just got done rattling off all the stats. But where I really want to focus is, I know you've done such a great job with me on the topic of mentorship and being a great mentor. And I know that's what I really want to focus on here. And so let's kind of get a little bit more of like your story, like how did the Art of Admissions get started, but maybe some of your mentors that helped you with becoming who Lexington is today.
Great questions, Aaron. And it starts off as all of us have a journey of an origin story or a series of stories. And for so many people in our life journeys, many times we end up in places that we had no idea even existed because we ended up being open, learning, growing, being open to opportunities. And my origin story comes from my childhood, which with many people it does. And I was given up for adoption at birth. And my adopted parents adopted me when I was 3 months old. And it turned out my adopted father, an amazing, amazing man. His name is Jack. His last name is Filipowski. And he had a dream to be a pianist. And this has huge bearing on what I do now. However, I didn't. And when I was 6 years old, he said I was interested in learning more about the piano and what he was playing. He knew a little tiny, tiny bit of how to play. And I don't remember that, but he said I learned so quickly what he knew that they offered to get me a teacher when I was 7. And I remember clearly, Aaron, sitting on the floor of our house in front of a fireplace watching TV, and my mother and father were on the phone with a piano teacher. And they asked me, do I want to take piano lessons? And with every ounce of my being, I knew the answer. I wanted to say no. I wanted to kiss girls and play baseball. That's all I wanted to do when I was 7. And however, my father was a scary guy at the time, and I was afraid if I said no, he would get very, very, very angry at me. And so I said, yes. I remember this so clearly. And he didn't look to the not nuanced response. He didn't say, yes, Dad, thank you. Like, yes, very sheepishly. But I started playing piano, and I got very good very quickly. And I started not only taking lessons when I was 7, I started playing piano professionally when I was 7. By 8 years old, I was making $100 a night for doing 4-hour parties and dance parties and gigs and all kinds of things. However, it was my father's dream. It wasn't my dream. And fast forward to I ended up performing in Lincoln Center in New York City when I was 12 years old for the first time with a Philharmonic Orchestra when I was 12, and ended up going to a performing arts boarding school. And I went there as a sophomore in high school. And this was a life-changing experience for me that occurred. Is I saw there was a simple 8.5 by 11 flyer that said there was a motivational speaker going to be speaking. And it was going to be a presentation to the students. We had 400 students from all over the world in the school. So something about what was written on that paper, Aaron, it got me. I could not wait. It was like Christmas and New Year's and Arbor Day and Halloween all put together. And I couldn't wait for the day of that presentation to happen. And when it finally did, I assumed the whole student body, all 400 students would be there. Excuse me. And I think there was either 12 or 20 students. I counted at the time. I'm thinking, where is everyone? Don't they know how incredible this is going to be? I don't know why I thought it was going to be so good. However, it's time to begin. We're in a small classroom. And then I see this man walk into the room from the side. And I looked at him. And with my 15-year-old ignorance, judge a book by its cover, I judged him by its cover initially. He walked into the center of the room, stood in front of us. He looked like he was 130 years old. He had this Grecian formula jet black dyed hair and all greased back. He had a pencil thin mustache, very dated looking. He had a bow tie as well. And I'm thinking, I thought to myself, I remember my inner words exactly. This guy ain't got nothing to teach me. However, for some reason, I didn't leave. Then the man opened his mouth and started speaking. Changed my life. Like, oh my God, this guy's absolutely incredible. So don't judge a book by its cover, number one, everyone. And he started talking about PMA, positive mental attitude. Your attitude determines your altitude. Mm. And I was like, I want to do what that guy's doing. And I listened, riveted to every syllable he said. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do in some form. Now, that gentleman wasn't an anonymous, unknown gentleman, though he could have been, but he was W. Clement Stone, considered by many the father of motivational speaking. And he was mentor to many people. And he was extraordinarily successful. I think he was in the insurance field. And the motivational speaking profession really came about from him. He was one of the foundational people. And from that point in my life, I lived with that perspective. And even though I did music professionally for 30 years, it was something that came very easy to me. But in the big picture, it wasn't my passion. It was helping people to realize their potential and to give them the skill sets to realize their potential. And I ended up getting into sales when I was 19, and something about it I absolutely loved. And I was open, and this is my theme in life. I was open to learning. I was open to hear about that motivational speaker. Now, how did I get into doing the work I'm doing in the art of admissions and worldwide, and work with my business partner, Tom King, at theartofadmissions.com, is at 19 years old, my father saw an ad for a piano and organ salesman in the local paper. He said, hey, you should get that job. And at the time I had gone to college up until my sophomore year. And then I decided I didn't need it because with the work I was doing with being a pianist at the time, I didn't need to go to school. I already knew how to play. And so I was working at 19 and I went to interview to one of the owners of this company called Spordone Pianos and Organs, I think. No, it was called New York Pianos and Organs at the time. And I interviewed with this gentleman named Neil Spordone. I went to his store and I sat down in front of him and he said to me, so tell me about your sales experience. Well, I didn't have any, but I didn't think it mattered. So for 20 minutes, he patiently listened to me blather on about, well, I was a child prodigy and people have been telling me I was a genius since I was 7 years old and I play Lexington, blah, blah, blah. And he just patiently listened to me for 20 minutes. I don't know why he didn't interrupt me and tell me to stop talking because it seemed to be wasting his time. But he very respectfully listened, sat there. And when I was done, he looked at me straight in the eye and he said to me, I don't care if you could play. I want to know if you could sell. And he said, you're not hired. He said, all right, well, thank you for considering me. However, the next day, I called him, picked up my phone. Hi, Neil. This is so-and-so. Who? Yeah, I just met with you yesterday. Oh, yeah. I asked him, did I get the job? No, you didn't get the job. I told you. I don't care that you could play. I want to know if you could sell. Thank you very much and enjoy a great day. And I was getting very respectful, very positive. The next day I called him. Hello, Neil? You know who this is? No. And I told him, oh, yeah. I told you yesterday you didn't get the job. Well, I did that every day. Day 3, Neil, you know who this is? Yes, I know who this is. You didn't get the job. I did that for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, I called him again, like I'd never called him before. Hi, Neil, this is so-and-so. Did I get the job? He said, stop. If you are half as relentless with my customers as you are with me, you will be an extraordinary salesman. You're hired. And so I got hired. And my relentlessness got me the job. However, my relentlessness kept me the job and got me successful. And my first day of training, he said to me, first day I was there, he gave me a formal sales training. He said, listen, Lexington, I'm going to give you a formal sales training. Whether you're selling pianos and organs or weapons, tanks, machine guns, drugs, you will be able to sell. I said, well, I have no interest in selling those other things. I just want to sell pianos and organs right now. He said, yeah, don't miss my point, Lexington. And he gave me this incredible sales training. And again, the key was I was open. I didn't claim to know everything. And I was only 19, the youngest person there by half. Within the first full month of me being there, I was the salesman of the month because I sold more than everyone else. And so that type of work ethic in being relentless to get the job and then being relentless to learning new things, because every day I was hungry to have him teach me more. How can I get better? If I didn't close a sale, what did I do wrong? What can I improve? And that eventually became, well, that was my journey. And there's a lot more to it, but eventually I started the Art of Admissions in 2006, July of 2006. And now we're working with schools all over the world. And I bring really the foundation of mentorship, to get back to your original question here, is mentorship is key. And being open to receiving the gifts of a generous mentor is key to success. Because if we got to reinvent the wheel, we don't live long enough to start from scratch. You know, maybe when we're 137, if we start and say, I don't need any help from all you. Maybe 137 years old, you know, we're starting to get a little bit of knowledge and wisdom and skill. Most people don't live that long, like if anyone. So the importance of mentorship is, I feel a mentor, and I've had numerous ones in my life. Well, not numerous, but a handful, actually, to be specific. And each one of them changed my life profoundly. And the key was I was open. And sometimes I was not open. Just reflecting back, I haven't thought of this really since our conversation here now. However, fortunately, I opened up and profoundly changed my life. And because of what I've learned, I'm able to help collectively millions of people throughout the world over the last almost 20 years in the art of admissions, and over 40 years since I started in sales.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing all of that. It was wonderful information. Like getting the whole how did we get to where we are today, and I thought that was really cool. That one that I love, that one of my favorite quotes as we're talking on mentors, that is, you know, that old Chinese proverb: to know the road in front of you, they ask the person coming back. And so you'd mentioned about with working that with that people, some that the biggest thing you mentioned for you that sounded like was being open. How do you go about working with those people who aren't necessarily open to what you have to say?
Fire them. Fire them.
All right, moving on.
Good talk, Aaron, and thank you for having me. So, number one, and this is a number one philosophy for anyone here that who may be doing hiring. If you have to mandate training with any one of your people, if you're on any company that does any type of sales, you got the wrong people. You need to find people who are open, who want to learn. And it isn't easy, especially in our culture presently. They exist. They're rare. However, how do you help people who aren't initially? Now, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But there's another piece in the mix. You can't lead a horse to, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But you could put salt in the hay. And so how do you put salt in the hay where it helps them to be thirsty, to realize that just because they get hired at a position, that they're not suddenly experts in that position. And in all the work you and I have done together, Eric, and Aaron, I don't know why I called you Eric, and Aaron, all the work that you and I have done together, that most people, just in general, throughout the country when it comes to admissions, aren't open. And they do feel they reach the apex when they get hired. Okay, I'm hired. Now leave me the hell alone, and I'm gonna do my best. I don't want goals. Don't give me goals. You're gonna try to hold me accountable to goals? I told you I don't want goals. Leave me alone. I want to be left alone in my comfort zone. I'll get you some sales, but don't tread on me. And if you do, I'm going to feel personally harassed. I'm going to be personally offended, and stop bothering me. That's the attitude of so many employees in this day, to put it very directly. If their soul were to truly talk to your soul, if they were honest, that's what they would say. So how do you help those people? What would you say, Aaron, in your experience? How do you help people who initially saying they're being resistant to you giving them training and accountability?
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I would say at first, you know, everybody gets a shot. It's one that I've always tried to work with people. But I do think there comes a point where at some point when you have to realize that just like any investment, when do I cut my losses?
And when do you cut them?
When do I say, you know what?
What's your runway?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't necessarily know when I make that decision. So like I know there was a guy that I was working with as we were going through trying to help with his personal growth development, and he was mentioning, you know, everything was everybody else's fault. And I was like, all right, perfect. So you can't control what your boss does, but how do we make ourselves better to try to help the situation? And after about our third session, I was like, dude, we've got to stop. I can't help you anymore. Like, you don't want to be helped. You just want to be in control, but that's not going to happen right now. And so, I mean, that's one of the ones I would like, for me, that's trying to figure that out. But it's a whole lot easier when, like you said, they're open and want to believe that, well, I don't know all the answers. And so that's what I was just trying to think through is there a way for us to help anybody like that?
And the answer is no. If someone's not open, it's on them. Now, there's some people who may initially be mostly not open, but that's where you salt the hay. And from a leadership standpoint and how to help people to go from what I call, and I didn't coin this term, I don't remember who did, but there's unconsciously incompetent is what most people start off in a new role. Because there are 4 stages to development and to greatness. And the first stage is unconsciously incompetent. And these are not personal negatives. It's just describing things. So when a person gets hired for a new role, say for a sales position, say if it's in admissions or just sales in general, maybe they have no sales experience. They are unconsciously incompetent. It means they're incompetent. They don't know. They don't have skill set to do a good job. And they don't know what they don't know. But what so many people do is they mistake, because they don't know it, that there is nothing to know. And if they start making sales, if someone doesn't say yes, that there's nothing them nor anyone in the world could have said or done anything differently to inspire that person to a different outcome. And so the unconsciously incompetent are not, they don't know what they don't know, and they don't have skill sets yet. Then,
so I'm going to park there for a quick second.
Go ahead.
So how do we then, as leaders, they help that, like, what do we need to do as far as making sure that we don't keep them unconsciously incompetent? Because I know you're going to move to point 2. I was like, all right, because I'm assuming this is going to lead into point 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can't stay unconsciously incompetent. That would mean you have no training program and you have no accountability to the training. So, okay, they're hired. They're a clean slate. So now you're going to start training them. Now they become consciously incompetent, meaning, okay, here's some sales techniques, perspectives, phrases, closes, presentation styles and techniques. They are now consciously incompetent, meaning they are now aware of what they don't know or didn't know and what they need to develop skills on. So now they're consciously incompetent. And that's where most people stay in sales. But now that brings us to the people who are willing and open and ideally passionate about learning. Because I'm very intentional in my languaging. And when someone says, well, I'm open to training, Aaron, all right, does that mean you're going to tolerate training because you know if you don't, you'll get fired? Or are you passionate about growing, personally transforming, developing new skill sets so you can be more effective? And not just sales, but when you develop sales skills, it helps your whole life. And so then with practice and role play, and there are 4 parts to this, like how do people get better? Number 1, you need great content. You need great training content. Then you need regular practice of that content, repetition of that content, and role play of that content. Repetition means watch the same videos over and over, or get the audio, same audios of those trainings over and over and over again. Then there's practice and role play. Constant. It doesn't stop. It's like Zig Ziglar asked, someone asked him, well, how often should I practice and role play? And he said, how often should you shower? Oh, I did it at 8 years old, Zig. I'm good for life. I don't think your friends or family or colleagues would say that. It's the same thing. Now, number 4, and how do you help a person improve? They have to have accountability. Most people are not self-accountable. And it is not against the law. It is not disrespectful. It is critical to hold your people accountable, ideally in supportive and inspirational ways and direct ways as well. And when people are held accountable, they stretch and grow. That's one of the keys. And without goals and being held accountable to those goals, they stay in the comfort zone. And as you and I know, good is the enemy of great. But most people don't even get to good. They're just an average. So, and then going to the next part. So then through what I just shared, which is you have to have great training content. You have to have practice and role play of that, continual repetition of watching or listening to that training content and accountability. Now you get to the point of conscious competence. But what conscious competence means is they're still thinking about it. They have to be aware. Okay, so when they say this, I've got to say this. When they do this, I've got to do this. Now, how do you get to the highest level, which is unconscious competence? To use a metaphor, which you're very familiar with, is you're a coach, you're a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
And great athletes become unconsciously competent. They don't need to think when they're being thrown a ball 40 or 50 yards away, well, I got to do this with my feet, I got to do this with my arms. They just do it because they're on automatic positive pilot by going drilling, every scenario, every play, again and again and again. And that's what my goal is, what my business partner Tom King's goal is in the Art of Emissions, and what your goal is with all of your clients is to get them to conscious competence. And competence seems like it could be a misnomer. I mean greatness. That's if you're unconsciously competent. Yeah. I misspoke there. You want them to be unconsciously competent, which is greatness.
Right. It's like I've said multiple times is I don't want you to practice it till you get it right. I want you to practice till you can't get it wrong. Mm-hmm. That's that unconscious competence that you were talking about. And I'd forgot about those 4 stages. I'm glad you had refreshed my memory on that because I knew I had heard it from you. And and I think that's where a lot of people get struggled and tripped up with the whole mentorship thing. So going back to when you were talking about going from conscious incompetence to conscious competence, going from level 2 to level 3 was with your having the great training program and the practice and role play and the continued practice and role play, but not just like, all right, so me and you are going to practice our sales pitch or whatever. All right, we're done. It's having that person that's going to be on there. And accountability isn't necessarily meaning like, hey, you do this now, but trying to get them to take personal ownership and having that to where they want to be great, but then having that mentor and that coach that's going to say, do it again. You didn't do it right this time. I'm not accepting that. That wasn't your best. Give me your best every time.
Well, actually, I don't want their best because the best means that's what they're capable up until this moment. I want their stretch. So when someone says, I did my best, no. I want you to do your stretch. And it's your best plus 1%. And it was, what's the gentleman's name, the actor, The Rock, and Dwayne Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Dwayne Johnson.
One of his philosophies in working out, for example, just one more. He'll do, if he's doing 10 reps of 400 pounds, he's going to do just one more. If you're in sales, you did 200 calls today, before you go, just one more. And I've done that in my workouts as well. And it adds up. If that's just one more, then you're never just at your best. Because all it means, I'm doing my best, that means I'm just doing to what I've developed until today. Because I want my best tomorrow to be better than my best today. So I asked him, what's your stretch? What's your stretch? Are you doing your stretch?
I like that instead. Using the stretch instead of the best.
Right.
Because that's really what we want, even, having, it's one of, I've told, like with my children, my father's the only person I know that truly wants me to be better than him. I want my children to be better than me. But a real mentor, they become more than just that person that's going to hold you accountable, wanting the best. They become a friend. And that's one I get often when talking with you is, you're all right. So Aaron, I'm going to tell you this because I want you to be better than me. It's got to be something that we're constantly striving for better. Yes, I like that. Give me your stretch. I'm changing that. Don't give me your best anymore. Give me your stretch.
Right, give me your stretch. And here's a great story from the life of Ronald Reagan. When he would have his son swim with him in the pool, since he was a little kid, he would have his son race with him. Have you heard this story?
I have not.
He would have his son race with him in the pool. And his son would get so upset that even as a kid, I don't know how old he was when he started, 8, 9 years old, his father Ronald Reagan would race his son, his 8-year-old, like he was in the Olympics. And someone would get upset, like, why are you beating me every time? Can't you let me win? No, I'm not going to let you win. And they did that for years. And at some point, his son beat him, and it was a real win. And Reagan was proud of his son, right? Because he gave him his stretch. And he didn't give him a trophy for participating. And that instilled an extraordinary work ethic in the son that he did that with.
Yeah. And then that comes down to, like what you were saying earlier, you've got to be open to it. Because stretching is uncomfortable. I mean, if we were to do it right now, all right, they stand up, they feet together, they hang your hands, like try to touch your toes. Some people that might be a real stretch, like it would hurt. And getting your stretch is, and being open to that. And so, yeah, guys, if you're finding value in any of this right now, go ahead, like, subscribe to the show, man. This has been awesome so far. And gonna kind of switch gears because I know they're starting to run out of time. That one thing I believe is all leaders are readers. That doesn't mean all readers are leaders, but leaders are learners. They're constantly growing and stretching and wanting to become the best that they can be, or better, the stretch that they can be. And so what would be something that or a book that you would recommend that all leaders need to read?
And number one, since the focus of the work in the art of the missions is sales, and it's sales for any business. And there's one that was extraordinarily inspirational to me, which was the Sales Bible by Jeffrey Gitomer. And one in the middle right there. And he has lots of specifics in what to say to people, not just generics, like say things like this, or say this. It gives you fundamental strategies and phrases to use. And also, he has awesome ideas, like creative ideas. Because when someone buys from us, Aaron, if we're in sales, they're not buying the product. They're ultimately buying us, our credibility, our energy, enthusiasm, and of course, the outcome of the product. And for example, he had a great suggestion in that book, which I used when I was in my first admissions job in a for-profit school. And he suggested for people who just aren't getting back to you, you called them, not getting back to you, do a motivational quote of the day. So I picked a list of 10 people, and I just called them every day. And this is what he told me to do through the book. First day, I said, hello, this is Lexington with so-and-so school with your quote of the day. I'm your missions advisor. And your attitude determines your altitude. And positive energy and inspirational. And to give me a call back at da-da-da. That's it. And then day 2, positive quote. Hi, this is Lexington, your missions advisor, phone number, da-da-da. Phone number's first. Forgot that part. And then inspirational quote of the day, day 2. Day 3, day 4. Then I stopped. Tells you to stop. Suddenly I'm getting these calls like, hey man, why'd you stop calling me? We love those quotes. They were talking about it at lunch and dinner. This inspirational, crazy guy leaving these quotes. I didn't ask him to do anything. I didn't ask him to call me. I left the quotes. And I love that because it's a differentiator. In sales, we have to differentiate ourselves, our personalities, our approach, because they buy from us. They buy from our personalities, on our creativeness, our creativity, and our energy, not necessarily our product or service. And if you can't reach people, don't just complain, oh, I'm not reaching them. Well, I called them, I texted them, I emailed them. What about doing some creative messages? What about sending them a video text, personal video text, what I trained you and your team on? Almost no one does it. In this time, 2024, almost no one sends personal video text messages, 20, 30-second messages to their prospects or explorers. They don't do it. Video emails. Send them a hard copy letter with a wax seal on it. You haven't gotten a hold of a prospect or explorer. So that's one of the things I learned from the Sales Bible. Creative differentiators. And they also break it up for us as salespeople. They make it fun. instead of doing the same thing every day.
Yeah. And I think, well, and one that you'd said earlier, sales, it helps you with everything in life. So why would you say that? Why would you say that sales helps you with everything in life? It
No,
just kind of
fundamentally,
came back to me.
yeah, it's a great question. And sales is ultimately and there's a great quote, I haven't thought of this in a while. It's the transfer of energy. And sales is a transfer of energy. My enthusiasm, my commitment and awareness of my product or service that I know it's going to help you, that is communicated to you through my words, my body language, my facial expressions, my hand gestures, my posture, and my overall energy. And when you develop the skill sets to be a better salespeople, communication, again, not just words, it's all of those things. That helps you to become a more effective human. And I get so many calls from people who we've trained. And one example, someone who worked or maybe still works in the massage school out west. And they called one day and it's Lexington. I want to thank you so much for the sales training that you've been giving us and our team. Because not only am I personally selling more and enrolling more students than I ever have in my life, I am in the first mature relationship of my life. And my partner the other day came up to me and they asked, what happened to you? I said, what do you mean? They kind of got a little concerned. You are so much more present with me. You seem to care even more for me. And you ask me really great questions when I tell you about my day. And I feel closer to you than I ever have. And this person knew that it was because of the increased communication skill set on all levels, the hard skills and the soft skills, how to listen to someone better, how to be more present with someone, how to ask them better questions and QBQs, better question beneath the question so there can be deeper answers beneath the answers.
Yes. And ultimately, I'll tell any and everybody, sales is just education. I'm educating them. And so you'd mentioned two other books to me earlier. I'd put them up.
Yes, and I just realized I hadn't said this quote in a while. Sales is a transfer of certainty. Transfer of certainty. That I know that product, my product or service will work. If I feel it, you will feel it. And you will feel the value of the outcome of my product or service and you will buy. So yes. And then going to the two other books. And one is The Ultimate Sales Machine. And that is a straight talk, direct book for sales managers. And it's mostly geared towards sales managers, but salespeople as well. And Chet Holmes, who unfortunately passed away at the relatively young age of 55 from leukemia. It was very sad to hear. I didn't have a chance to meet him and work with him in person, but he's just direct. And one of the takeaways from that book is when he would go to a new business, Aaron, as a sales consultant, he would first ask people, how many calls are you making a day? And they would say, oh, making 100, 150. This is almost universal. Then they look at the CRM and so forth. Reality, 4, 12, 15. And so he said they did that because there was no accountability and no tracking on that. Then he said, if you want to be an effective manager, you need pig-headed determination, non-negotiable high standards. There cannot be, try this or do this. This is the standard. You're going to meet the standard or you're fired. Period. And he holds a space for that. And there's a commitment. There's not like, well, here's our standard, but we'll accept this. Here it is. However, you also need to support your people. So you don't just tell them, well, you got to be better. What does that mean? You got to work harder. What does that mean? It's just too generic. Here's what you need to do specifically. Here's where you're doing well. Here's the optimizations you need. Here's what you need to say. And how you need to say it. And that's practice and role play, constantly. And with pig-headed determination as a manager, you do not accept anything less than that greatness. And as long as people are on the track, they're going to get there. And you constantly got to be firing your bottom performers. Stop trying to put round pegs in square holes or whatever, whichever it is there, square pegs and round holes. Stop that. You waste so much time. You waste 80 to 90% of your energy on people who should be fired. Focus on the people who want to be developed and keep hiring, keep hiring. And I just talked with one of our other clients earlier today. I said, but, you know, if I got to keep hiring and firing people, I've got a hiring problem. I said, not necessarily. As long as you have a training solution with accountability, then you don't have a hiring problem. It's a numbers game. You have to keep cutting the lowest performers on your team because, as you know, in sports, you're only as good as your weakest player. So that's some of what I got from that book.
Yes. And then the last one that you'd told me that were must reads, the managerial moment of truth.
Managerial moment of truth. And that is an extraordinarily simple, direct, emotionless way to hold your people accountable as a sales manager. And the biggest problem, the biggest reason why businesses are not successful is that I've seen is lack of clear, non-negotiable standards and lack of accountability to achieve those, and the support and sales strategies to achieve them. And that the people have got to use what they're trained in, not just they attend the training and go back to what they're doing. And so I know you've read that book, Aaron, and it's a direct, emotionless way for people to speak the truth about why they're not doing what they've been directed to do. Because remember, if you're a director or sales manager, you're not a suggester.
No.
I hope, you know what, Aaron? I manage 100 people, and I don't know. I gave them lots of suggestions. I just really hope they use them. Oh, our sales are down $3 million this quarter, but I don't know. Maybe let's see how we need more, more success, more money. They'll turn it around. It won't happen.
Yeah. No, that one was a really good one. And then the book that you said you are currently reading, so what book are you currently reading, or either just finished reading or about to start reading?
All right, so I'm going to start reading this book again. It is called The Great Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it's a book on how to go from good to great. And it is extraordinary book. And it helps you to realize and to reflect on, are you living and expressing your full potential, or are you in the comfort zone? And how do you get out of that? And it even has some mantras that you can say every single day. And something like, in every day, in every way, I'm growing in confidence, and some other things. I haven't said that in a while. And it bears doing again and reading the book again, because we're here to shine, not to be average. And as Wayne Dyer, the great motivational speaker, said, don't die with your symphony still inside of you. You have greatness in you. Every single person does. Oh, but Lexington is not easy. Of course it's not. Extraordinary achievements are never the result of ordinary efforts, period. But everyone wants to be great, but 99% of people do not want to do what's necessary to become great. And the thing is, as numerous mentors and coaches and leaders have said, greatness leaves clues. It's not a mystery. It's not like Elon Musk or whoever you may see as, high achieving people. They're happy to tell you how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
They may work 20-hour days, 22-hour days. They're relentless. Are they always liked? Absolutely not. But are they direct? Usually they are, and they have non-negotiable high standards. How does Steve Jobs create this? What is it? The world's first $1 trillion company? Non-negotiable high standards. He could be a bastard, and I'm not saying you have to be a bastard. You can find a way to work in a balance that you obviously, if you can't be hitting your team over the hammer with a hammer constantly, that's not going to work either.
Right. You can't be a jerk to them and just overbearing.
But you need to be direct, and most people want direct, and they do want accountability. And you also do have to have a foundation that you create trust, and that they know that you have your best interest at heart, that you're a drill sergeant. And the great drill sergeants really care for their people. You know, it may not seem like it on the outside, but they really do. And you have to care for your people's personal growth and expansion. And they're going to feel that, because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. And I think it's so crucial too, with all that too, saying the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, people, when you said everybody wants to win, I say not everybody wants to win. I say they like the idea of winning, that because they don't want to do what it takes to actually win. Winning's tough. Being great's tough. Like you were saying with anything really.
And anyone can become great, but
yes.
You also want to maintain great. And in fact, you don't even want to maintain. I'm going to change that. You want to be great and keep going high. Don't maintain great. Keep getting higher, because what's great here, you have a greater. There's always a higher mountain. And as long as you're alive, why would you settle for not expressing, or developing and expressing and using your full potential?
Yeah.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
And so Lexington, if anybody listening wanted to get in touch with you, how do they reach you?
Other than carrier pigeon, which is not as popular, and that goes into a whole other story that I haven't used recently. And you can reach me at lex@theartofadmissions.com. That's lex@theartofadmissions.com. Or call me or text me. Pick my brain, 201-953-9984. And I'm happy to give you some perspectives, some ideas, some directions, anyone watching this. We're all here to help each other.
Yeah. And all of that information, guys, it's going to be listed in the description below. And so, Lexington, I appreciate you hopping on. I appreciate all you've done for me over the years. And we'll definitely have to get together and do this again.
That was great.
Man, what a great episode. There were so many great things covered while connecting with Lexington. And there really was a lot. But I just want to give you a few key takeaways from our conversation. And the first thing that came up, that Lexington really talked about how mentorship is crucial for personal and professional growth. It's so important, guys. You got to make sure you have somebody that's helping you get there. And it's so much easier when you have somebody that's already done what you want to do. We talked about being open to learning and how essential that is for you to be successful. And then we talked about continuous growth requires accountability and support. Again, this is why you want that mentor. They're going to help keep you accountable and push you to become better than what you currently are. We talked about how greatness is a journey and not a destination. It's something you do each and every single day. We talked about the importance of having high standards in leadership and how crucial that is for you to create a great team and a great culture. And then we really touched on personal development. It's a lifelong process. It's not something you did. It's something you do. And so look, if you're looking for any leadership or personal growth training, it could be for you, it could be for your team, it could be for an event, reach out to me. I'd love to be able to help you on your journey and to inspire you. And you can always connect with me via my website or on all social media at coachaclark.com or at coach_a_Clark. All of that information, it is in the description. It's listed below. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that other good stuff as well. And remember, you don't need to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So keep leading, keep growing, and keep innovating. Until next time, stay inspired and connected, and I will see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_a_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobbie at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.